Okay, sawa. So this is ActiveRecord migrations recap. I'll go through the whole content that we have on migrations, and then I'll be doing instances that are inside the content. So learning goals: create, connect to, and manipulate an SQL database using ActiveRecord. So setup: we are going to use the ActiveRecord gem to create a mapping between our database and model. This is a long lesson, and there are a lot of important steps to successfully work with ActiveRecord. So make sure to code along. We'll summarize the important steps at the end. Start by cloning down this lesson, run bundle install. I've already done that. So migrations. From the Rails guides section on migrations are a convenient way to alter your database schema over time in a consistent way. There, they use a Ruby DSL, so that you don't have to write SQL by hand, allowing your schema and changes to be database independent. You can think of each migration as being a new version of the database. A schema starts off with nothing on it, and each migration modifies it to add or remove tables, columns, or entries. ActiveRecord knows how to update your schema along with its timeline, bringing it from whatever point it is in the history of the latest to the latest version. ActiveRecord will also update your DB schema file to match the up-to-date structure of your database. So, what this means is, think of migration as version control. So you see how on GitHub we have on Git we have commits. Commits ndio zina track your progress, your milestones, your progress and all, and it stores a new version of your code every time you make a commit. So basically migrations do the same thing, but in this case it does that for databases. It stores like a snapshot of your whole database at that specific point. You may create a migration, and then it saves your changes based on your it saves your changes. It saves a snapshot of your database in this DB schema. So anytime you do a migrate, uh, a schema will be created, a file called schema that will store your snapshots. I'll show you later on when we run it. Say it's empty because it doesn't have anything. We haven't ran any migration. So let's go on. Why might you need something like version control in your database? You might create a table, add some data to it, and then make some changes to it later on. By adding a new migration for each change you make on the database, you won't lose any data you want to, and you can easily revert changes. Yeah, like we said, when you have commits on Git or GitHub, you can easily roll back to commits that you did earlier. So yeah, that's one reason why we're using migrations. So executed migrations are tracked by ActiveRecord in your database, so that they aren't used twice. Using the migration system to apply the schema changes is easier than keeping track of changes manually and executing them manually at the appropriate time. So yeah, um, there's if a tool has been created for version control, there's no need of you doing it by hand. Usually it's hectic by default, and keeping tabs of a lot of things is, yeah, it's hectic, no lie. So uh, what they do to prevent duplication, whatever they're saying to be executed twice, is what it does is it creates a timestamp on every migration you make. So like on Git, whenever you do a commit, it generates a specific ID. I don't know whether I have one in here I can show you. Open a new GitHub. Normally it generates a very unique ID that it keeps. So based on that, it will know exactly what commit it is. Let me just go to
I
one.
think hizo ID najua ni kama
Ni kama
is like ID ama keys.
uh, I think it's ID too, if I'm not wrong. I think it's just an ID. Hii hapa commit this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
True.
So for GitHub, they create this ID. For version control, they just use the timestamp. Itajua which one came first, then what followed, hivyo hivyo ikienda. So uh, so yeah, so I've already explained this. So using timestamps prevents it from running twice ama duplicates. Yeah, so creating a table. One common task when working with the database is creating tables. Remember how we can create a table using SQL with ActiveRecord. So uh, so first we connect to a database, then write the necessary SQL to create the table. So first we'd have to connect to a database, and this is how you connect to the database using ActiveRecord. Initially we used to write db connect tukitumia ORMs, but now you're using ActiveRecord. You can use this when you're using when you want to connect to a database using ORMs bado.
DB Connect
Yeah,
every
yeah, yeah.
DB Connect ni ile DB alafu ile bracket alafu con, si ndio?
Yeah, exactly. This db equals to normally it's equal to a hash. So you'll write con, then something like this, then provide your connection here. Provide here your connection. So connection to database. So yeah, if this was the format, and whenever you wanted to refer to it, you would come and just call db this con. Whenever you wanted to call it, whenever you wanted to call the connection to the database, call it. This is establish. This establish a connection. This is calling the connection. Yeah. Yeah. Then because we are not using the generic connections anymore, they want us to use ActiveRecord. So this is how you do it when using ActiveRecord. And again, when you use ORMs, you have to write the preceding SQL statements for whatever it is how you want to manipulate the database. So SQL is a variable, and this is called a heredoc. That shows that you want to write multiple lines of SQL, and then start with the SQL keyword and then end with the SQL keyword. So hapa katikati you have your whole text, your SQL, and then after you're done, call the database connection and execute your SQL. So this is how it used to be done in ORM. So we want to compare how we used to do it on ORM and how we are doing it using ActiveRecord. So using migrations, we still need to establish ActiveRecord's connection to the database, but we no longer need the SQL. Instead of dealing with SQL directly, we provide the migrations we want, and ActiveRecord takes care of creating and modifying the tables. Yeah. So we no longer need SQL using ActiveRecord like we used to using on ORMs, and yeah, ActiveRecord takes care of all the SQL. So to tell ActiveRecord how to connect to the database from here on out, we use a config database.yml file. Let me zoom in. So this file is used by convention to give ActiveRecord the necessary details about how to connect to a database, like which adapter we are using. Right now we are using SQLite, but ActiveRecord supports other databases, other database adapters such as MySQL, PostgreSQL, and as well. and the and the name of the file, and the name of the database file. Here's what it will look like. So we are now coming from this method of creating a connection. Let me copy it. We are coming from this method of creating a connection. We are coming from this method to this method, sasa, to this method. So if we come and check the database YML under config, based on this is the link they've given us. If you come and open, sorry, what am I opening? So database, if you come and check, yeah, it has exactly whatever they're saying. So it has two denominations. It has one for development and it has one for testing. So what I understand, this is a test database and this is a development database. The difference between test and development is development is already a working set of code that you want for your program or your project. So at this point on development, there should be zero errors. There should not be any errors. The testing, this environment should not contain any errors. So let me write should and contain any errors. Then there's the test environment. I'm at the test database. So how I understand this is this is where your testing happens. Testing happens. So if you, as before you as you do, as you code your things, yeah, you'll realize you'll need to test it before you set it out there. So testing in this environment is totally okay. So after you've tested it and realize that everything works as intended, you can now ship that code to development. Ndio ikikuja kwa development, it works as intended. It doesn't break anything else, because if you don't properly test your code and send it to development, it will break development, and usually that's a headache, that's an issue. Yeah. So I'll continue. As you can see, this is similar information as the Ruby code we've used previously, just in different format.
Nikuulize,
Yeah.
hiyo aspect ya test and development,
Mm.
is it why, as in, is it the reason why move follow watu Twitter, especially these devs,
Mm.
na wanaongeleanga on how wakiandika like their code, they have to write tests.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's called test-driven development. Uh, it's called TDD. Let me give you this. TDD. It's called test-driven development. Yeah, test-driven development. So what basically what they do is, they write tests. They write tests for the code they will they will write. Usually most of the people recommend this because it is like a sure way of creating code that is uh, relatively clean. You can it is easy to see errors you make, and uh, yeah. It helps you look for leakages and stuff like that. So test driven development, uh, okay, you write tests basically. Kuna languages kama for HTML CSS, I guess we were using Mocha for tests. There's RSpec for Ruby, RSpec for Ruby. There's Cypress. Yeah, it depends with what you want to test. So that depends with the exact testing environment that you want to use. But yeah, testing development should be is recommended whenever writing code. Yeah.
Sawa sawa.
Okay, so so. Yeah. So now Okay, nilikuwa nasoma hapa. As you see, this is familiar information with the Ruby code we used previously, just in different format. So we were using this initially, but now we are using this. And if you look at the format, it's up, give or take about the same thing. So we have development, we have adapter SQLite 3, and then the database. Database is a relative link to where your database is. So ukikuja uangalie pia the previous in ORM it has the same thing pia. So adapter and the adapter you are using, so adapter you're using and database, and then pass a relative link the to your database file. So hapo kwa adapter you can use any database that you have. It accepts, like we read hapa juu, it accepts MySQL, Postgre, and others as well. So you can just change up depending on your, you can just change the adapter based on the database that you're using at the moment. Yeah. And yeah, so I've already explained this. With the connection to the database configured, we can move on to the next step. ActiveRecord rig tasks, sorry. ActiveRecord rig tasks. So while we are doing this, I assume you have gone through the previous content, introduction to rig.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hiyo
yeah.
si ni ile ya automating some matasks kutoka hiyo.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, based on that, we'll use it oftenly. So if you haven't, make sure you have and at least get the hang of it, and how it works. So ActiveRecord rig tasks. The simplest way to work with migrations is through rig tasks that were given through a new gem, the Sinatra ActiveRecord gem. This gem provides some common rig tasks for working with ActiveRecord. Okay, this, let me just show you where it is. Iko kwa gem file. This, so we can use rig thanks to this gem. Normally whenever we start a program, we normally write bundle install. So when you run this, what it does is it comes to this gem file, looks at what it wants, looks at what the project wants, all of this gem, this gem, this gem, this gem, this, and then installs all of them. Then after it's done, you can now use your program as you wish. So yeah. Okay, so run rake-t to see the list of commands, all of the list of commands we have. So for rake has a couple of methods itself, ama commands. So if, sorry, rake dash capital T. Okay, rake aborted. Oh, sorry, kuna code nimeandika huku that is not valid. Yep, this one, all of this. Sorry about that. So if I run it, it should respond. Yeah. So let me expand this. So these are the methods that rake can use. Rake can use to test your in your project. Yeah. So there's rake console, there's db create, there's create migration, there's drop, there's a lot of commands you can run, and if you check them, they also have descriptions. So if you want to know what each
So in
command
short,
does, yeah,
ni like
yeah,
hiyo gem ya Sinatra Active Record ime inbuilt hizi nini tasks zenye ni kitu yenye tutatumia like sijui niseme ime automate hizi nini repetitive task, kitu kama hiyo yenye tutatumia kwa hii.
Okay.
So ndio hiyo sasa hiyo minus t ndio inakupata like sasa ni kama inakuonyesha sasa, if you want to do this call hii code rec db create ndio itakufanyia hivi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yaani imekurahisisha kazi.
Yeah, it comes and consults upper. It comes and consults from here. Though if you check the the gem file again, and if you check the gem file, okay, there's Sinatra, ActiveRecord, and there's Rake itself. So I don't know whether this comes as a dependency to this, this works independently and this works independently. But I think, okay, anyway they work in collaboration, because what you're doing is ActiveRecord anyway. So yeah, what you're saying is correct. Whenever you run this command, it comes and consults to its dependency, and then executes whatever it is asked. So okay, so I'll continue. So run rec to see the commands we have. So note, if we get an error while trying to run rec commands, you may have a newer version of rec already installed compared to this lesson, causing a conflict. To avoid this error, run bundle exec rec-t. Adding bundle exec indicates that you want rec to run with the context of your lesson bundle defined in your gem file, but not the default version of rec you have installed globally on your computer. Also see, but I don't want to handle to bundle exec. Yeah, so if at all you get errors while running rec, you can use bundle exec. So if I come and do bundle exec, then rec-t, it will still bring the same, because for me, the time of using this program, and I'm running the same version of rec that it requires, so that's why it's bringing back what is expected. But if in the event the version is different, it will most likely pop up an error, and if you see that, you can just add this prefix bundle exec, and then it will run with the prefix stored in your gem file, the version stored in a gem file. So if I which one even is it? Okay, I'm not sure which version it gets from here, but yeah, basically that is what happens. Let me continue. Let's look at the rec file. The commands listed when running rec-t are made available as rec tasks through require, Sinatra, ActiveRecord, then rec. So if you come and look at the rec file, yeah, this is where we write our requires. Let's read through it again. So for us to make rec available throughout our program, you require rec ActiveRecord, then /rec. Yeah, so actually they are working together. So yeah, I think this answers your question, Jivans. Okay, now let me continue. Let's take a look again at the environment.rb, which our rec file also requires. So we see that the rec file also requires this environment, so let's go and see what it has. Okay, so we have env rack env, then equal to development. So basically what this line means, I'll read through it, so no worries, I'll get it from the notes. So let me continue. This file is requiring the gems in our gem file and giving our program access to them. Now that you know where our rec tasks are coming from, let's use one of them to create our first migration. So env rack env here is known as an environment variable. In this case, the environment variable determines whether our code is running in a development environment or a test environment when running RSpec tests. So rack environment, let me just call it rack environment. Rack environment is a specific environment variable that is used by the Sinatra ActiveRecord gem to determine which database to connect to in our environment.rb file. We are specifying that it should use the development database, which is configured in the database.yml file. So if you come again to the database.yml, remember we have two environment sets. We have the test environment and we have the development. So for you to specify which environment you will be using, you go to the rec file and not the rec file, sorry, to the environment and specify which environment you will be using. So if you are using the test environment, you can just come here and write test, yeah. But since it came they want us to use the development, we'll just leave it as development. Then so till this part I am done. For the rec file, we are done. Do you have any questions before we start migrations, creating migrations?
For me, so far so good right now.
Okay, so nice.
Yeah, like naelewa sasa hivi.
Okay, so now we will start creating migrations. To create a migration for setting up our artist table, run this command. So looking at this command, it has bundle exec. Remember, this is the phrase we said, if at all you're having issues, you can run it. If you're having version issues, you can run this and then it will execute based on your gem file, the recommended version on your gem file. And then we have rig db create migration, then you pass down a name of your migration. So if you have gone through the rec introduction to rec, you should understand what this statement does. So let me just copy it and paste it down here. So again, whenever you run rec and then it doesn't return anything, that means there's no change that it has made to your database. So if I check this line that has been returned upper chini, it says db migrate, then there's a weird number here. This number is a timestamp, and then it has created artists. So this create artists comes from this name that you specify here. So if you come to your migrate folder, db then migrate folder, you will see a new file created. And then this file, in the file name, it contains a timestamp of the current date and time we are at the moment. So if you look, today we are in November 4th, 2022. Here it should say the same thing. So 2022 November, date 4, and okay, it's showing 17. Okay, it's like 3 hours back, so probably I have maybe I'm 3 hours behind and I don't know, but you get the point. So what it does is it creates a migration, and inside this migration you are required to write what you want to execute in the database. Okay, so running this command will generate a new file in the db migrations called this. Like we've seen, the timestamp at the beginning of the migration is crucial since it will be used as part of the version control for your migrations and ensure they are run in the correct order. Hello. Pole,
Hello?
my internet does that sometimes. It drops for a minute and then comes back. But
Oh, no worries.
okay, so let me continue. I was reading this paragraph. So running this command will generate a new file in your DB migrations called this timestamp, then create artist.rb. Remember again, this name comes from whatever you specify here. So the timestamp at the beginning of the migration is crucial, since it will be used as part of the version control for your migrations and ensure they are run in the correct order. So if we now we want to see the folder structure. So inside the app we have our models. Inside models we have only one model, which is artist.rb, but if you had more, yeah, we would add them here. So if you had song.rb, if we had genre.rb, yeah, we would add them here. Then we have the config file. The config file contains an environment. This sets the environment for your application. It contains some requires here and there, yeah, like this, and yeah, and it sets the environment that you want to use through with the database. So in this case we are setting the database environment to be in development. Again, we have a DB migrate. So if I come and check my DB migrate, we have only one file. Okay, we have two files here. This is git keep. I can't remember exactly what it does, but it's at this point it's an empty file. Yeah. So it's harmless. And then we have the newly created migration, which is empty. So, and then we have other folders. So the spec file is for writing your tests. If you have tests, this is where your tests will be. Then the gem file is the equivalent of db.json, which used to contain all the a list of all your dependencies. So they do the same thing, and I showed you. And yeah, we have the rig file. The rig file contains.
Is it db.json ama package?
Oh yeah, sorry, it's package.json. Sorry, yeah. Pole. It's package.json, not db.json. Sorry, habit. Pole. Okay, so now the reg file contains tasks that you want to abstract from your program, maybe because they're repetitive. So yeah, you are at will to write your own tasks at will. But for this lesson you will not be writing any tasks. So if you noticed, there's also a .keep file in your db migrate folder. You can delete this file after creating them at the migration, since git won't track an empty directory. Creating an empty .gitkeep file is convention for creating folders with no content and keeping them in your git repository. Oh, okay. So assuming you push an empty folder to GitHub, I think it will ignore it. But if you want to push something, a folder to Git, and apparently need it, but without any content at the moment, you can use the .git keep. So this GitHub will look at the folder, see it has a file, and then choose to upload it. So yeah, so that's why we have the .keep there. But if we need to download, if we want, we can delete it, but let's just leave it anyway, since it's harmless. In addition to creating the migration file, the rig file task also added some code for us. So yeah, this is basically what we have in. Let me close all of this, close this, close this, close this, and close this. Let me open the migration file. So this is the code that it has generated for us. Yeah, so this is a normal class. It's creating a normal class called create artists. Remember the convention of naming classes. It should be in Pascal case, and we are inheriting properties from ActiveRecord migration. So if you do not do this, then you would be writing a normal class. But if you inherit from ActiveRecord migration, you would inherit properties that ActiveRecord holds. So okay, we'll see about that in a few. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but yeah, you inherit the properties that ActiveRecord holds. Yeah. So let me start here. ActiveRecord migration methods: up, down, and change. Here we're creating a class called create artist that inherits ActiveRecord migration module. Within this class, we have a change method, which is the most common for updating the database. Okay, like I said, we have a change. This is a change method, and then we created a class called create artists. So what it does, Mali create artist, where it comes from is it takes your name, the name that you specified while creating the module, this create artists, and it converts it to the convention that is needed when creating a class. So it took the create artists, put here capital C, removed the underscore, and then joined the two words, and then also a capital A to make it Pascal keys. So yeah, so I've not written this, it came automatically when running the migrate. Okay. So the change method is the primary way of writing migrations. It works for the majority of cases where ActiveRecord knows how to reverse the migration automatically. So okay, we'll see about migration in a few. In addition to change, ActiveRecord also provides an up method to define the code to execute when the migration is run, and a down method to define the code to execute when the migration is rolled back. Think of it like do and undo. Okay, so basically what this means is when a certain version is up, that means whatever you're specifying in that version is running, is up and running. But when the let me read here again. So in addition to change, ActiveRecord also provides an up method to define the code to execute when the migration is run, and down method to define the method to execute when the migration is rolled back. Think of it like do's and undo. Okay, so now so for the do, it represents the versions that you have at the moment, the versions that are running at the moment. But if you roll back, the word here is roll back. If you roll back, that means the specific version of your database is not running. So we'll see about that in a few. There's an example on that. So let's take a look at how to finish our create artist migration, which will generate our artist table with the appropriate columns. Remember, table names are plural, so we are creating artist table, which we'll use with an artist class. So they want us to paste this code over here. So if you look at it, we have a method called change, and they want us to create a table called artist. So artists, remember to put the symbol, and also always remember that table names are in plural. So create table artist do. So I'll write that here. Create table, then artists do, then pipes, then pass in t there. Okay, let's check out the do. Okay, so let's continue. Here we've added the create table method and passed the name of the table we want to create as a symbol. Pretty simple, right? Other methods we can add here are things like remove table, rename table, remove column, add column, and others. You can see the list, there's a link there. So after the table name artists, we write a block of code that is passed to block parameters t, which is a special ActiveRecord migration object that helps add different columns to the database. no point of having a table that has no columns in it, so let's add a few. So under the create table, I'll come and paste the whole of this. Sorry, let me paste this. And we are supposed to end this do. So at the end I will end it. Looks a little familiar. On the left we are given the data type we used to cast the columns as, and on the right we've given the name we'd like to give the column. So if you look at the structure, T refers to this single instance of the column. You're telling that column to accept only strings, string values, and this refers to the name of the column. Again, you're creating another column that takes in string values, and the name of the values are, and the name of the column is genre. Again, we are creating a new column called integer, and integer takes in a name, a heading of age, yeah, and so forth. You can have like 20 columns if you wish. Javans, let me ask, do you know how to pause OBS? Kupause? There's no option to pause.
Well, I'm not really sure.
Okay, so I'll just continue. Okay, okay, just give me a minute. Okay, so let me read here again. Looks familiar. On the left we're given the data type we'd like to cast the column as, and on the right we're given the name we'd like to give to the column. So the only thing that we are missing is the primary key. ActiveRecord will generate that column for us, and for each row added, a key will be auto incremented. So normally it will create numbers from number 1 to whatever, auto incrementing. For each record it auto increments the ID. Well, this syntax looks intimidating. Remember, this is all just Ruby code. If we were to write this out using parentheses for the method calls, it looks like this, which may make it easier to see how the code works, but less pleasant to read. So okay, this is the same thing like what we have over here. The only difference is the parentheses. So the parentheses are optional. In most Ruby code, parentheses are optional. So if you like this kind of syntax, well and good, you can use it, but if you don't like it, you can stick to no parentheses. Yeah, and that's it. You've covered your first ActiveRecord migration. Next you're going to see it in action, so running migrations. So we've created a migration. The migration we've created is called, this is the migration we created, create artists. This is the migration we created. So running migrations, it's time to run our migration. Run this command. So I will come and copy this. This is part of the rake commands that we looked about earlier. So if I run this, so if I look at the console, it's telling me it is beginning the process of migrating, and then after a few seconds it tells me that it has already migrated. So that means it was successful, the migration was successful. So let me continue. When we run this command, a few things will happen. Number one, ActiveRecord will create a new database file if you don't have one already, if one doesn't already exist, based on the configuration of the database YML file. So if we come and check our DB, we should have a database created. Okay, we have a database created. I don't have a good styling, icons extension, that's why it's not showing, but this is a database. So SQLite 3 is a database, and the reason why it's called development SQLite 3 is because we specified in environment to use the environment, the rack environment for development. Okay, so let me go on. So number two, it will then use the code in the migrate folder to update the database. So if you were to check what we have in the database at the moment, it should show these columns, but it won't show because we don't have any data. We don't have any data at the moment. So but it creates the table and adds the column names to the database, to the table, sorry. The third, it will also create a DB schema file which is used as a snapshot of the current state of your database. So if I come again and check my DB, sorry, I see a schema here. So okay, that's weird. Okay, it's not showing the schema. Why is that? And we've already done this and it was successful. It created the database. Oh, sorry, what is changed? It's supposed to be changed. Sorry. So let me delete this. Sorry, let me delete this. Delete. So I'm deleting everything that was created when you ran the migration. So delete again, delete, and then yeah, I will run the process again. So sorry about that. I will run the migrate again. Okay, so it has run. Let's see what it has now. Let's look at the schema. Yeah, it's created our, this is now the snapshot of the database that we have. It says we have a table called artists, and the artist has these columns. So yeah, so we are good, we are on the right track. The DB, the schema file looks like this. So if this is what you've seen, what is over here. As you can see, it includes a version number that corresponds to the timestamp of the migration file, as well as the definition for the whole table created in the migration. So this, if you compare this, it corresponds to the migration, whenever we created this migration, the timestamp that is here. So let's continue. As you can see, it includes a version number that corresponds to the timestamp of the migration file, as well as the definition of the table you created in the migration. You can also use this rig task to see the status of your migrations. So let's copy this. So the only difference we are doing with what we had initially is that we have added a status. We have added a status keyword here. So status will tell us our current predicament. So it tells us we have only one migration available, and this is the description, the name of the migration, and the status, it is up and running. Okay, remember Ukojo, we learned that we have up and down, so we'll also see down when we roll back. So if the status is up, this means the migration is active, it's been run, and has updated the database successfully. Interacting with the database, take a look at any question by the way to this point.
Me saying niko sawa. So far so good.
Okay, so okay, let's proceed. Interacting with the database, take a look at app models artists. You'll notice our model code is slightly different file in a different file structure than before. So app models instead of lib. Initially when we were doing Ruby, we used to have a lib folder library, but now we are using app then models. The reason for this is that the file structure is commonly used in modular Sinatra applications as well as in Rails. So we'll set up our projects this way from here on out and give the exposure to this file structure. So let's create an artist class and extend the class with ActiveRecords base. So they want us to create a new let's go to models. They tell us to go to models and then artists. So inside artists, this is empty. They want us to create a new class and then extend ActiveRecord to it. So let me copy this, let me paste it here. So let's continue. Remember, singular class name, then plural table name. So if you check class name, it's singular, and if you were to check the database is plural. Artists, it has an S. So yeah, up to that point I think we're good. I remember, okay, to test our newly created class out, let's use the console rake task which we've created in the rake file. So if you want to open the console within the constraints of rake, you can come and do rake console. I will try to use rake console without the bundle exec to show you that it also works without. Depending if your environment is if your versions are good, then it will work without. So let me write rake console. So I am inside the price session. So inside the price session we can test out our code.
By the David,
Yeah. Yep.
Before uendelee, nataka kuuliza swali moja hapa, yani out of history za AR ActiveRecord migrations. What is like Pry basically?
Okay, Pry is, from how I understanding, it is a testing environment. Okay, you remember when we're doing Ruby, we used to require Pry. Actually, pia React, yeah. So we're using Pry pia React. Why were we using React pia? No, I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm just even over my head. So what we used to do was normally require Pry, and then we require we call binding.pry. Yeah, okay, we are not doing it in React. I was just saying my own things. So require Pry makes Pry available to your program, and then binding.pry. Now when the program compiles, when the program runs, whenever it comes and finds binding.pry, it stops executing at that point. It stops. So, and it stops and creates a Pry session in your terminal, on your terminal. So what this means is it allows you to test your code up to this specific point mali imepata Pry. So for example, you are looping through an array of authors. Yeah, you're looping through an array of authors. So remember, our loop will go through everything once going consecutively. So if you had an array of 5 authors, it will loop 5 times. So for every loop, if I told to make a binding.pry within that method ya loop, it stopped 5 times, so you can test it at that specific time. So if at all you come and at the first pry stop, and then you write probably you look for, you want to see the name of the author at this instance. Let me write here test specific instance. So what it does is it tests specific instances for whatever it is you're looking for. So if you want to find the name of this specific instance that is running, well and good. If you want to find out the age of the specific instance that is running, you can just come and prompt upper age at the console. So let's use the example that we have over here to test out pry, and I hope you will understand what it means, what it does. Yeah. So okay, so check that the artist class, that the class exists. So if you put a capital A, you're referring to the class. So let me come and write artist. Okay, so artist, I called artist the class and it responded, so that means it is present. Let me try running a different thing that doesn't exist. I'm sure we'll get an error. Yeah, it doesn't know anything called QWERTY. So yeah, that means our pry has access to the artist. So if I want to see artist, remember is the class. So if I want to see the column names, there's a method in Ruby, in ActiveRecord rather, called column names. It's a method in ActiveRecord. So if I come and write artist again dot column names, it will return an array of all the column names you have in that table. So we have ID, we have name, we have genre, we have age, and we have hometown. Let's continue. Instantiate a new artist table, a new artist John, set his age to 30 and save him to the database. So okay, so let's do this. They want us to instantiate, or rather create, a new artist called John, set the age to 30 and save him to the database. So if I come and do this, copy, remember it's A equals to artist.new, then name equals to John. So if I come and do this, Control C, V, create it. So I've created a new instance called John with the name John, and then I want to change the age. So since I saved it in a variable, I can come and write a dot age equals to 30, and then it changes the age to 30. So if I recheck John, if I recheck John's age, okay, if I recheck John's age, John, no, how do I check it? So a dot age, it should respond with 30 because I've already set it. So now whenever we do dot new, that is what you used to do initially in JavaScript. Whenever you want to create a new instance, you use the keyword new, dot new. But for us to save it in the database, we have to use the dot save method. So I would come and do a dot save. That way it saves it in the database. Let me read. So the dot new method creates a new instance in memory, but for that instance to persist, we need to save it. If we want to create a new instance and save it all at one go, we use dot create. So artist dot create then name Kelly. Let me just copy this and then paste it over here. Control Shift V. You see it's created an instance and then saved it to the database directly. So this is a lifesaver. It saves you a process in the pipeline. I return an array of all artists from the database. So artist.all, remember you are calling the class. So artist.all, you are what am I? Artist. Yeah, so remember when you're writing methods, all normally is a class method. We used to write self.all, so same case here, but we are not writing methods anymore. It does that by default. So if I run artist.all, it should bring back all the instances we have of artist. We created one called John, and this is John. We created another one called Kelly. Yeah, that's Kelly. So I again notice that it stops when running this. So I used to get stuck whenever it was doing this. So to come out of this, you can press D, and then after you're done, press Q to come out. So you press D to continue, and then Q to come out of that being stuck there. Okay, so find an artist by name. Okay, yeah, so .all returns an array of all the artists that you have. Yeah. So find artist by name, you can use artist.findby, and then use whatever keyword, use whatever methodology you want to search by. So if I come and write artist again .findby, find underscore by, then do this, then name, age, let me even search by age 30. You see, it returns John because John has an age of 30. So yeah, it works like that. Let's continue. There's another method .find. So I can come and write artist.find peke yake. So what find does is it searches, it looks for, it finds based on the ID you are running. So for example, if I come and do ID2, find ID2, it should bring back Kelly because Kelly has an ID of 2. But what happens if I come and look for an ID of 5? Since I know in the database I don't have anything with the ID of 5, or rather tujafika 5, so it brings back an error, or nil rather, it doesn't know what that is. So yeah, let's continue. That was just a by the way. There are several methods you can use to create, retrieve, update, and delete data from your database at a while, and a whole lot more. So to take a look at these CRUD operations, yeah, there's a link there. You can go and check it out and play around with them. So using migrations to manipulate existing tables. Let's add a favorite food column in our artists table. So ActiveRecord keeps track of migrations we are already running. So adding the new code to this migration, this migration refers to the migration we already have, this one. Okay, let me delete this. This is the migration we have. So since they're telling us to add a favorite food column, if I come up to chini and then do this t dot string dot favorite food, then okay, let me do this favorite. So if you are to do this and then run the migrate again, it will not work. So that's why they are saying create a new migration and then append your changes there. So yeah, they're saying it won't work. So if you try running rake db migrate again, now the file this migration won't be re-executed. Yeah. So generally, the best practice for database management, especially in a production environment, is creating a new migration to modify existing tables. That way, we'd have a clear linear record of all the changes that have led to our current database structure. To make this change, we're going to need a new migration. So let me copy this. Copy it and then paste it. I'll come out of this exit and then run it Okay, so it's created a new migration. So what you're supposed to do is write how you want to edit or how you want to manipulate the database. And now the migration, add the migration code to the file. So I will come and copy this. Remember, ActiveRecord handles all your SQL, all of your SQL. So when you tell it to add column, it understands what add column means. If you are to write basic Ruby or ORMs, we would have written some SQL statements up. So for example, insert new blah blah blah. So we would have written a bunch of SQL for this, but since ActiveRecord understands, it handles SQL for us. So we are saying add column to artists. This refers to the table. Which table do you want to add the column to? The second refers to the name of the column you want to add, and the third refers to the data type of the column you want to add. So hiyo ikiwa hivyo, that is complete. Pretty awesome, right? We just told ActiveRecord to add a column in the database, in the artist table called favorite food, and that it will contain a string. So notice the new timestamp for this migration. Imagine for a minute that you deleted your original database and wanted to execute the migrations again. ActiveRecord is going to execute each file, but it does so in alphanumerical order. If we didn't have the timestamps, our add column migration would have tried to run fast. So if we didn't have the timestamps, remember this timestamp, this is what I'm referring to. So if we just had this timestamp, this migration here, add favorites would have executed fast because A comes first in the alphabetical order, and that is not convenient. So comes before C, create artists, and our artist table wouldn't have even been created yet. So we used timestamps to make sure the migrations execute in order. Another benefit of using the rec tasks. So basically what they're saying is, whenever you run this program, this migration should be executed fast before this second one. So if you check at the timestamp, it's different. So one refers to being older than the other. So it starts with the oldest migration coming to the very newest migration. So if you run the newest, you can't run the newest migration without running the old one, unless you delete the old one. If you delete the old one, that means it will start with this, and it will not work because you don't even have a database to append this column to. So that means it will just bring an error. Okay, so since we have added a new migration, let's migrate it. Control Shift V and then C. Okay, so the migration has run. Let's check the status of our migration. I will come and check. Copy this. Copy this. So the only thing we've added up is status from the migrate command. Okay, so you see both of them show that they are up and running. So that means all of your migrations are included in the environment that you have at the moment. So let's continue and see the DB schema file that it was also uploaded to include the new column. So let's go and check out our schema. Initially this food was not their favorite food, wasn't there, but since we updated our database, it has included our change there. Okay, so I suppose we are good. Again, artist.column names now will include the newly created column that the most recent column that we have. Yeah, sawa. So great. Nope, wait, what just came down from the boss? You weren't supposed to ship that change yet. We wanted to keep track of the artist's favorite flower, not their favorite food. Oh no. No worries. I will roll back to the first migration. So run rec-t, which command should we use? That's right, db rollback. So there's a command in rec called rollback, which rolls back to the previous version that you had, version of migration that you have. So I'll come and copy this. Actually, let me just write it. I'll just add rollback. Since if you check, it's reverting, and since it was successful, it says reverted. So if I were to check the status again, let's see what it says. It no longer says the status is up for both of them anymore. Since we rolled back on this migration, only one migration is up and running. This one has been rolled back, and if you go and check our schema, we no longer have the favorite food anymore that we had. Okay, so that was this is what we were referring to, up and down. Up means it's running, down means it's not running. Okay, so let's continue. The migration being down indicates that it is not part of the database. You can verify this by checking the schema. It's no longer there. Since the migration is down, we can't edit it and correct the name of the column as well as the name of the file, and the name of the file and the name of the class, just to make this change clear. So since the change is down, we can rename whatever it is that you want to rename. So first you would come to the migrate itself. Since support will automatic add favorite food, they want us to change to flour, I suppose. So let me read this. Okay, yeah, and here I change flour. So let me just change it actually. So instead of food, I'll write flour. And hapa kwa the column, they also want flour. That's it. There's nothing else we're changing hapo. Note, if you change the class name in the file but don't also change the file name, the migration will error out. ActiveRecord is very particular about its conventions. Make sure to change the file name as well. So I will come here again and rename this file. Rename. Remember, it says food, so I'll remove food and write flour. Enter. Okay, so if we run our migrate again, let me just use this. Run our migrate again. Okay, it has migrated. Let's check the status. Yeah, everything now is up and running. So if we come and check our schema, we'll see that we no longer have the favorite food, but we have flour. Yeah, so based on this, they tell us. Yeah. Okay, so based on this, yeah, so basically that is what migration is. Yeah, so let me read this. When should I roll back? In general, rolling back is a migration. Sorry, what am I reading? In general, rollback is a migration safe to do while you are developing a new feature and experimenting with your code. If you're collaborating with other developer or a team on a project, once you share the code with other developers, you shouldn't roll back and modify any existing migrations. Remember, the migration history is like a version control for your database, so it's bad idea to go back in time and rewrite that history. Conclusion: migrations are a crucial part of ActiveRecord application. They provide a consistent way to set up and update your database tables without having to write any SQL code by hand. Okay, basically ActiveRecord handles all the SQL at this point, so you don't have to bother writing SQL at any point, because ActiveRecord handles that for you in the background. To add a feature in the database, such as creating an or altering a table, here is a summary of the steps. Run db create migration, then run the description of the change to generate a migration file. Write the migration code in the migration file. That means the changes you want to make to your database, and run the migration with rake db migrate. So check the status of the migration with rake db migrate status and inspect the db schema file to ensure the correct changes were made. To change an existing migration that hasn't been shared with other team members yet, here is a summary of the steps. So so like I said, okay, so run rake db rollback to undo the last migration. This means you're going back to a previous version whenever you're rolling back. Check the status of your migration with rake db migrate status and make sure it is down. Edit the migration file. Run rake db migrate to update the database. Check the status of the migration. You can run rake db migrate status and inspect the db schema file to ensure that the correct changes were made. So yeah, that is ActiveRecord migrations. Any question?
Me, right now, unajua like this hiyo lab ilikuwa tayari nishapitia.
Okay.
But then the last bit no siku nimepitia, but venye sasa umeexplain, umepitia tena sasa. For me, like right now nimeelewa like the reason for migration.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So I don't know if maybe I can try to explain it to you. Uniambie if I'm looking at it wrongly.
Sawa. Yeah, sure.
So like for me, from what me understand, like migration ni ile yenye we see like kuna ni kama ni the bridge between tuseme like the Ruby and the database, and in a way kwamba these two like they can't connect directly, so like they need your migration ni kama the in betweener yenye itasaidia like okay yenye itakuwa ina read from Ruby na kuna venye ina interpret vizuri. I don't know if I'm correct hivyo, but ni ile yenye
Okay, technically I wouldn't say that is correct, because remember ActiveRecord haitumiki in Ruby peke yake. It can be used in hizi languages zingine pia. You can use it in Python. It's just a library out there. So what happens is so it doesn't have any connection to Ruby. We are just using ActiveRecord because this is where it specializes.
Oh, in this context too.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't have much effect to Ruby, but basically what migrations does is it keeps a version of your database. Hivyo simple. It monitors your database hivyo tu. Okay, for example sahi,
so in short,
yeah,
I shouldn't like overthink it na ni put it in like the same way as version control like Git. Version control like Git is something naelewa tu vizuri, like it's direct na naelewa how you commit, how kila version unaona. So it's just like that in short.
Hivyo tu. It haina anything more. Ukitaka go back to the first commit you made, let's say hata umefika 15,000 commits, if one day you wake up and then you say manze there's something I did uko nikiwa 3,000 hiyo commit ya 3,000, let me go back see how I can revamp it, and maybe do another line nini of this code. You can always roll back to a version that you want. So that's what's happening. So for databases, you'll find that you're building as the more you go, the more your database grows. So it is important to keep record of your growth, record of your database. Yeah, because maybe inaweza fika point and then you realize, hey, by the way, I'm not supposed to add this to this table, I'm supposed to add it in another table. Then you realize, then you decide to remove it and then put it into another table. So you see that versions makes it flexible, si ati ni kitu fixed hapo. So it allows you to make process to no, what am I saying, to make it makes you flexible with your database. It gives you flexibility in terms of versions. You can roll back to any version that you want. And for example, let me just give you an example, Jevons. Yeah, assuming si unaandikaga code. So imagine ukiambiwa andika code na hakuna kuvuta. Ukiandika whether it's right or wrong, andika ifanye
ibaki hivyo.
Hakuna vuta ama keyboard yako ina backspace key. Haina backspace na ina delete. Kuna code ungewahi andika kweli?
Kwa ngumu.
Yeah, hakuna kitu yenye utaiandika na run, because normally we write test, if it works proceed, if you write it fails, you test it, find out where the problem is, delete it, and then write what is expected and then continue. So you see, bila that ability ya ku undo, bila that ability ya ku delete what we have done wrong, our database would be static, and that is a bad thing. Let me see.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so sijui kama hata niko relevant, but
no like nimeget na what nimetoa from whatever you've said. Like I think for me I was just overthinking it. Na in a way I was just trying to see if I can come up with a different way ya kuelewa. But then imeget unfortunately I was just trying to, because you see, like this context you're learning, for me I was thinking it's just specific to this. Like after after Ruby tumeenda kwa SQL and database, that tumekuja sahi kwa ActiveRecord na migration. So this is its only context. Naona. Yeah, that's how I was trying to make sense of it. Lakini kama if this is just like it can be used nive tu sahi ni tu tuko kwa context ya Ruby, and that is why tumefunzwa, but pia it can blend with other languages pia. Ndo sahi naona okay, I think it's best just to understand it from a version control perspective, because now hiyo ndo sasa ndo ita form the underlying like base knowledge yenye ita explain hadi kwa other languages pia.
Yes.
Ni ile tu
yeah, ni hivyo tu, exactly whatever you said, you are correct. So yeah, look at it from a version control point of view of your database. Now sasa ni database easy, si code rather, ni just your database.
Database.
Yeah, okay, ni hivyo tu, there's nothing else. Let me end this recording.